November 10th, 1943, Rechlin, Germany, the beating heart of the Luftwaffe's aircraft testing division. The air smelled of fuel, oil, and arrogance. Chief Test Pilot Hans-Werner Lerche walked across the cold tarmac, his leather flight jacket creaking in the wind. Ahead of him sat an American fighter, captured, repainted, humiliated with black crosses on its wings. A Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. Fat, ugly, grotesque, the mechanic said. They called it the flying milk bottle. Lerche had read the intelligence briefings. The Americans built machines, not masterpieces. Crude, overpowered, designed by men who built refrigerators, not aircraft. This monstrous, barrel-shaped fighter was the proof. But as Lerche approached the captured P-47, something about it stopped him. The proportions were wrong, but purposeful. Every line, every panel, every rivet looked like it had been put there for a reason. He ran a hand along the fuselage. It wasn't crude. It was consistent. Clean welds, even seams, no shortcuts. This wasn't a piece of junk. This was mass production, done perfectly. And in that moment, Lerche felt something he rarely did. Curiosity. Hans-Werner Lerche wasn't a man easily impressed. Born in Breslau in 1916, he'd started flying gliders as a boy. By 1939, while other men were learning to kill, Lerche was learning to understand. He became one of the Luftwaffe's best test pilots, a man trusted to fly anything, anywhere, anytime. He'd flown over 120 different aircraft, prototypes, production models, captured Allied planes. He wasn't a combat ace. He was something rarer, a technical mind with the reflexes to match. And unlike many in the Nazi high command, Lerche didn't believe in propaganda. If an enemy aircraft was superior, he said so. If German engineering had flaws, he wrote them down, bluntly. That honesty made him dangerous in a system that preferred comfort over truth. But it also made him one of the few men capable of seeing the war for what it truly was. A test of industry, not just ideology. The P-47 on the tarmac, serial number 427971, nicknamed Beetle, had been captured 3 days earlier. Its pilot, Lieutenant William Roach, had gotten lost in heavy weather over France. Running low on fuel, he spotted what he thought was an Allied airfield and landed. Moments later, German soldiers surrounded the plane. Roach was now a prisoner of war. His fighter, now marked T9+FK, belonged to Germany. Lerche had heard the jokes. American arrogance, one pilot sneered. They build airplanes like tractors. Too heavy to dogfight. Another laughed. Too slow to run away. Lerche ignored them. He'd flown Spitfires, Hurricanes, even a captured B-17. And each time, he'd learned something. If an enemy built a plane that looked strange, there was a reason. His job was to find it. He began his inspection the way he always did. Silent, methodical, analytical. The first thing he noticed was the sheer bulk. The engine, a Pratt & Whitney R2800, was massive, easily twice the size of a Messerschmitt's. The landing gear was thick, the tires oversized. To a German engineer, it looked barbaric. No elegance, no subtlety, just brute strength.
Next man dies there.
But when Lerche knelt down to examine the landing gear, he froze. The construction wasn't crude, it was deliberate. Heavy-duty struts, reinforced joints. This thing could land on a muddy field, take a beating and fly again. That was new. German aircraft demanded perfect conditions. They were thoroughbreds, fast, agile, and fragile. This American fighter was a workhorse. And suddenly, Lerche began to see a pattern. He climbed into the cockpit. At first, it felt absurdly large, a living room compared to the Bf-109's coffin-sized enclosure. But when he settled into the seat, his perspective shifted. The space wasn't wasteful. It was humane. The seat was padded, The controls intuitive. Every gauge was labeled and color-coded. Green for normal, red for danger. He blinked. Color coding? Then it hit him. American squadrons were filled with pilots from every corner of the Allied world. Brits, Poles, Czechs, French. Some barely spoke English. This system let anyone fly safely. Green meant go. Red meant stop. It was universal. Not elegant engineering, practical engineering. German cockpits, by contrast, were tight, technical, and punishing. Everything required precision, experience, discipline. One mistake, and you'd stall, overheat, or worse. The Americans had built a plane that forgave mistakes because they understood war didn't wait for perfection. Lerche flipped through the manual. It was simple. Step-by-step instructions for everything. Startup, takeoff, emergency procedures. Even a mediocre pilot could follow it. He frowned. German manuals assumed expertise. This one assumed the opposite. It was written for mass production, of both planes and pilots. He turned his attention to the details. Throttle, prop pitch, and mixture control, all grouped together on the left. Fuel selectors clearly labeled. No hidden switches, no confusion. Everything about the P-47 screamed one idea: simplicity in service of consistency. A machine anyone could fly. A machine that could survive punishment. A machine that could keep flying day after day, battle after battle. When Lerche started the engine, the roar shook the hangar. A deep, smooth, powerful hum filled the air. Not harsh, not temperamental, steady, reliable. He smiled despite himself. German engines, especially the late war models, were temperamental monsters. Precision-tuned, but delicate. Too often, they broke before battle even began. This engine? It sounded like it could run forever. Lerche sat there, listening. That sound wasn't just horsepower, it was industrial competence. The sound of a factory that could make 10,000 engines just like this, all of them identical, all of them dependable. Germany could build brilliance, America could build reliability, and in a long war, reliability wins. He taxied toward the runway. The wide landing gear handled perfectly. Stable, smooth, forgiving. He remembered the Bf-109, twitchy, narrow, prone to ground loops. Inexperienced pilots crashed before even leaving the ground. The Americans had solved that problem by designing for imperfection. He lined up on the runway and advanced the throttle. The P-47 surged forward, heavy but confident. Takeoff was easy. Predictable? No surprises, no drama. Once airborne, he raised the gear and began climbing. The Thunderbolt felt solid, not nimble like a 109, not responsive like a 190, but steady. He banked left, then right, smooth, stable, forgiving. It didn't punish mistakes, it protected its pilot from them. And that, Lerche realized, was its true weapon. The P-47 wasn't built for aces, it was built for armies. He spent 90 minutes in the air, testing every system, every control, every weakness. There weren't many. At high altitude, the turbo supercharger came alive, and the plane surged ahead with effortless power. German fighters struggled above 20,000 feet. This thing thrived there. The dive speed was phenomenal. The roll rate, impressive for something this size. Every maneuver felt predictable. Safe. The plane didn't surprise him once, and that was its genius. It wasn't the fastest. It wasn't the most agile. But it was always ready. When he finally brought Beetle back down to Rechlin and rolled to a stop, the ground crew expected sarcasm. Instead, Lerche climbed down slowly, his face unreadable. One mechanic called out, half laughing, "So, Herr Lerche, how was the flying milk bottle?" Lerche looked back at the American fighter, then said quietly, "It's the best operational aircraft I've ever flown." The mechanics stared, confused. The best? But it's heavy, clumsy. He shook his head. You don't understand. It's not built for performance. It's built for operations, and that changes everything. That night, in his office, Lersch began to write. The sound of his typewriter echoed across the quiet hangar. He wrote the words that would later define his career and predict the fate of the Luftwaffe. Germany builds fighters for excellence. America builds fighters for endurance. And in total war, endurance wins. He finished the report, signed it, and sent it up the chain of command. It would be read. It would be discussed. And like so many truths in Nazi Germany, it would be ignored. That night, Hans-Werner Lerche typed until his fingers ached. Each line of his report was a warning disguised as analysis. The P-47 Thunderbolt represents a different kind of thinking. He wrote, "It is not designed for the ace. It is designed for the army." He divided the document into cold, clinical sections: performance, handling, systems, strategic meaning, but every paragraph pulsed with urgency. He described its strengths: smooth engine, forgiving controls, color-coded gauges, cockpit built for humans, not heroes. He compared it to the Messerschmitt and Focke-Wulf, brilliant machines that broke as often as they fought. Then came the sentence that would doom his report to a filing cabinet. Germany builds fighters for excellence. America builds fighters for endurance. In a total war, endurance decides. He signed his name, sent it up the chain, and went home, knowing no one would listen. Ignored warnings. Weeks later, the paper reached Berlin. It was read, discussed, and stamped übermäßig pessimistisch, overly pessimistic. Engineers defended German purity, officers praised pilot skill. To them, the Thunderbolt was still a flying refrigerator. They wanted reassurance, not reality. By early 1944, Lersche's prophecy began unfolding above the Reich. Thunderbolts filled the sky like storm clouds, hundreds at first, then thousands. They escorted bombers deep into Germany day after day. German fighters shot them down, and the next morning, there were more. Luftwaffe pilots noticed something maddening. They would rip holes through a P-47, watch it tumble, and then see it recover, limping home. They would destroy a squadron and meet another the next week, fresh, identical, endless. The Americans had built not a fighter, but a factory product ecosystem. Each one easy to fly, easy to fix, easy to replace. Collapse of a doctrine. By summer, the Luftwaffe was bleeding itself dry. Fuel shortages, bombing raids, conscripted mechanics. Every weakness Lerche had listed came true. On paper, Germany still fielded 3,000 fighters. In the air, maybe 200 actually flew. Engines failed, parts didn't fit, replacements never arrived. Across the channel, American factories ran 24 hours a day. A P-47 rolled off the line every hour. Each one started the moment its pilot hit the switch. Each one came home more often than it didn't. Reliability had become a weapon. After the war, Lerche survived. He never crashed, never lost an aircraft. A miracle for a man who flew more than 120 types, many without manuals. In 1945, Allied investigators found his reports stacked neatly in Rechlin's archives. An American officer leafed through the P-47 file. "You wrote this in 43? Lerche nodded. "I did. You said we'd win because our airplanes keep flying. I said you'd win because ours would not." The Americans were fascinated. They interrogated him for days about Allied designs he had tested. Spitfires, Mustangs, Fortresses. Every answer circled back to the same theme: industrial reliability. "You built for perfect pilots," Lerche told them. "We built for tired ones. You built aircraft that survived mistakes. We built aircraft that punished them." They asked if adopting American philosophy earlier could have saved Germany. He thought for a long moment. "Maybe not the war," he said, "but perhaps our pilots." Numbers don't lie. By the end of the conflict, the United States had produced more than 15,600 Thunderbolts. Germany, across all single-engine fighters combined, barely 36,000, and half sat grounded for lack of parts or fuel. An American squadron with 100 P-47s could field 85 or 90 any given day. A German unit might manage 60. Multiply that by months, by fronts, by missions. The math crushed the Luftwaffe long before its spirit broke. Legacy years later, Lersch published his memoir, Luftwaffe Test Pilot, Flying Captured Allied Aircraft. In one passage he wrote, "The Thunderbolt was not beautiful, but it was honest. It did exactly what it was built to do, fight every day." Historians would later call that sentence prophetic, because the P-47's true victory wasn't in dogfights, it was in logistics. It proved that war is not won by the best plane, but by the plane that keeps showing up. The lesson: the engineers of Nazi Germany built for glory. The engineers of America built for endurance. And when the smoke cleared, endurance remained. The P-47 Thunderbolt wasn't the fastest or the prettiest, but it was the most available, the most forgiving, the most operational. It was, as Lersch wrote, the perfect aircraft for an imperfect world. Because in war, as in life, perfection breaks, reliability wins.